Welcome to the Shulamite Podcast, an extension of Shulamite Ministries and Shulamite.com, with weekly interviews and teaching with author and speaker Martha Kilpatrick and hosted by John Enslow. This weekly podcast is a way to stay connected to the ministry. So come experience anointed messages, not giving just another method, but a living impartation.
Are you the one that said what 1 Samuel 26:9b? What was that? I don't remember what it said.
When David and one of his men saw Saul sleeping, Saul had been, persecuting David, and they saw him sleeping with the army, and one of David's men wanted to kill him right there, said, "Let me kill him." And David said, "Don't destroy him. Nobody can raise his hand against Adonai's anointed without becoming guilty. As Adonai lives, Adonai will strike him down, or the day will come for him to die, or he will go down to battle and be swept away. Adonai forbid that I should raise my hand against Adonai's anointed." Which I never really noticed that part. I always remember the part where the guy who does end up killing Saul tells David he's dead and I killed him because I think so that he wouldn't be dragged off by the enemy or something. And David strikes him down. Says it wasn't his place to do it.
And because David understood sovereignty.
Absolutely.
And sovereignty means that what God ordains, even to choose Saul as the king, even though he was evil and wanted to murder, he was the anointed. And that is sovereignty. The Bible is full of such stories that prove the reality of God's sovereignty and what happens when you resist it. What happens when you will not come under that sovereignty of his order.
Oh, I have to correct myself. Saul asked the man to kill him. He said to me, "I'm in agony, I'm going to die, but I'm still alive, so please stand next to me and kill me." So I stood next to him and killed him. Saul asked him to kill him.
Even still.
And David said, "How is it that you weren't afraid to raise your hand to destroy Adonai's anointed?" David called one of his young men and said, "Go over to him and kill him."
Even under his direction.
Yeah, that proves there's so much to that. The Bible is full of it. If you see it as it is, you will see the sovereignty of God.
It's impossible not to.
If you believe it and read it in that way. But the power, that's what's come out of it for me, is the power of prayer. That situations that are wrong, God intends us to be involved in Him, not in the situation. Entangled not with what's going on, but with God's view and being prayer and solving it by prayer. That's so powerful. He has given us the power through prayer to correct situations and to rule wrongs. And by asking Him to do it, He says, "You be quiet. I will fight for you."
I was just saying, actually, we, not God, but we often blame Eve for the fall. Because she fell for the serpent's lie and she took it in. But then she took it to Adam, and Adam had a choice. Adam could have chosen God, could have chosen to take what Eve told him to God and ask God.
And Adam was not deceived. Adam just chose.
Yeah.
That's right. Thanks, John, for facing up.
Well, it's just the way it is.
We're each individually responsible for our choice. Often it's like, oh, Adam and Eve fell. They fell individually.
But when God dealt with it, He dealt with Adam. Both of them had repercussions that He named, but He addressed Adam as responsible for it. Which I'm not saying it's men. I'm just saying you named it. Adam was not deceived, and so he had the reality, and he could have used it to stop it there. But as I've always said, if he hadn't done it, I would have. So
The first man and not the last to make a decision based on trying to please his wife rather than God. More afraid of the fallout from his wife than...
Exactly.
And see, what the enemy actually did was to convince Eve that God was not sovereign. And there were no consequences because God was not in control. But there are consequences because he's sovereign. But he gave her a hint and a suggestion unspoken that God was really not God. Because he never said what he really said.
But you know something, the circumstance that you're talking about, that you allowed his sovereignty to lead you through the whole deal, when you did that, you bowed and you surrendered and you waited and you prayed, the situation turned right back around and was a blessing to you and blessing to it was
it was a marvelous outcome, perfectly marvelous.
It blessed all of us, actually.
Mm-hmm. But you helped me. You the one that helped me. You said, Martha, you've got to let it go. You've got to let God do his thing. And you've got to let this situation be God's. And I did let go. I did.
And then turned around and it blessed you. It gave you exactly what you would have wanted if you maybe not exactly how you would have scripted it.
It was more wonderful than I would have wished for. And I received the revelation that probably has changed my life. I'm asking him, show me where I resist you and quench the spirit, and show me where I'm interfering with you, trying to play God, where I don't need to play God. There is one perfectly adequate for every situation. And I'm to partner with him. And as on the 10th floor looking down, not entangled, not involving myself, not even in my thinking. We don't understand that our thoughts of control are powerful against the spirit and against people.
It's because we don't trust God, right? It's because we believe that he's foolish and he won't do it the right way.
He won't do it. I have to do it. And that's the old man. That will always be there in the flesh. It will always be unbelief. But if we understood, and it's tested all of life, I believe it's tested every path is tested as to whether you believe he is God or not. It's what you said in the beginning, the hug from God, that his sovereignty is in place and I'm secure. He can and he will, and he does, and he has all those things we see in how it plays out. His sovereignty is proven and defended. It's like Israel standing before the Red Sea, as Rebecca said. Moses was vindicated when yak. Oh, me. But his sovereignty is so, huge. And so big. We talked also about the prayer, all things work together for good to those who love God and according to his purpose. So that is true for those who love him and who are living for his purpose. He's in control. You're looking very thoughtful.
I just know how I've just made a mess. Whenever I'm the orchestrator and the conductor of my own existence, I literally am going to make a mess. I'm literally going to make a train wreck, and it's going to be awful. And I'm literally trying to pull it off the tracks. Okay, I want you off the tracks. And sovereignty is that track, and it's very secure. It's very,
But he can even use your mess.
Oh, he has to, because that's all I have.
He can sovereignly.
That's how sovereign he is, isn't it?
He has to, because that's all he has. He has our mess. He has our train wreck, and he has to, And it's not like even tomorrow I'm not going to,
And I believe his sovereignty is a boundary for each individual, and that you can go way off, but there's a limit.
Yeah.
And when you hit that limit, God pulls you back in, but he's sovereign over the freedom he gives you is is under his sovereignty even. Does that make
Yeah, that's frightening to me. I don't want that much control. That's horrifying. Because do I think that I'll run right in the center of that bubble that he has, that sovereign bubble? No, I'm going to run on the edge of that bubble. If you give me the parameter, I'm going to go all the way to the edge of the parameter.
But you won't be allowed to go beyond it. There will be a place, and it's a long place. And he lets you go a lot of distance because you're free to do that. But if he's chosen you, then he sovereignly will get you where he wants you to be. Thank God for his sovereignty. It's so beautiful and wonderful and powerful.
It's his fathering. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is him being Father. Mm-hmm.
And so many things we think we didn't have as a child, such as a present father, were God's sovereign plan and order to produce in you and me and Rebecca what he wants us to become. For instance, I didn't have a mother from the age of like 10 or 12. My mother died when I was 14. I have a mothering heart because I didn't have that for so many years. She never saw my children born. She never met my husband. And that is a huge hole in me that God fills by letting me mother, the kind of mother she was. And so there was purpose in it, in all of it. And I've seen in one person's life that they had not an absent father, that might have been a little bit better, but a very damaging father. And that made that person withdraw from the Father. And I've seen that God reserved that person to very much, the story is going to be the fatherhood of God for that person, because God was jealous. We don't understand God's jealousy. You want me to go off on that?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great.
He is a jealous God. And I've told about my friend who woke up in the night and heard an audible voice say to her, "What is my name?" And she went, "I don't know." He said, "My name is jealous." And it is. It's not a characteristic. It is a name. It is an identity. And thank God he is, because it is his jealousy for us that is our protection when we're foolish. But I'm saying that God, every deficit in our childhood is an inborn hole waiting for God to fill with himself. And so when it took me a long time to accept that my mother was gone and I had no mother. It took me years. But when I came to the end of it, he said to me, "I am your father, mother, sister, brother, and husband. Mm-hmm. I am every relationship." Mm-hmm. And there are many things, I think, that I would be different if my mother had lived. I would not be the same person if she had lived. And he decided what kind of person I would be, sovereignly.
And he sovereignly chose what would make that person. He chose where he was going to put the thumb in that clay as it was spinning.
Yes, exactly, on the potter's wheel. Great. So everything is wonderful. And he's tried to teach me. I've been poor at learning it, but he's tried to teach me. I think there is no problem. There is no problem. There are situations that need his sovereignty. There are things in our lives that we feel have damaged us, but there is no problem. And that is hard to believe, because we have this drive in us to control. And it will be tested unendingly. What God tests about his sovereignty is our unbelief. He exposes our unbelief in his power, his willingness. Can you help me? If you are willing, Jesus? If I'm willing, yes, I'll do it now. His power, his willingness, his involvement, his hearing us. And the other thing we don't understand, and it constitutes a paradox is that he will give us free will to refuse his will, and he will let us have the consequences of that. That's how free we are in God. It is our choice. And if it is our choice, then we must exercise that choice toward him. But it's frighteningly true that he will give us the freedom we want from him and away from him, if that's what we want. That's why prayer is so important. That's why prayer is the calling. Prayer is the power. Prayer is the solution. Ask God to do it.
We hope you've enjoyed the Shulamite podcast. For all the latest from Shulamite Ministries, please visit us at Shulamite.com, where you'll find Martha's daily devotions, posts from GetAlongWithGod.com, and the online library of all of Martha's writings. At Shulamite.com, downloading the free Shulamite app is easy, and LivingChristianBooks.com is only a click away. Thank you for joining us on this journey to discover a God worth knowing.